for the opportunity. First of all, I want to thank all of you and also to all the students who've actually taken the time to log in to listen to me. I was very excited because I'm a great believer in setting up, in mentoring, in leaving a legacy, in kind of nurturing and nourishing, in fact, the next generation, because you are the future of hospitality, and it is what you do in your life when you move on. It is actually all our responsibilities to actually to be the shoulder on which you stand, because this is the only way. And I'm completely one of those people who believes that you only rise by lifting others. And the whole essence of hospitality is about service. And I'm always worried because especially I am speaking from the land of Gordon Ramsay, and very shouty, invariably male chefs, heavily tattooed, who have actually twisted what is the idea of being a kitchen by showing an aggression, humiliation of someone who is trying to learn, who may not be achieving what you want. And this whole language and tone in which kitchens have been presented is not the kitchen I recognize, and I'm absolutely sure it's not the kitchen any of you will recognize, I hope never recognize, in your lifetime working in hospitality. And everything stems from leadership. Because, a lot of people are so engrossed and so interested in presentation, in, being the first, being the trendy person who was the first person who, made something unusual, fusing different kinds of cuisines. It's all about, being spectacular. But the real magic is what happens behind the doors that no one sees, which is in the kitchen, which is the relationship between people in the team, in the kitchen, and also the communication with the front of house. Because, I know this from, having run a restaurant now for 3.5 years, things do go wrong, absolutely without fail. There are nights when everything is smooth sailing, and then you sit back and think, wow, nothing went wrong this night. So, you can't go into a service, especially, when it is packed, it is very busy, expecting everything to be smooth. This is a challenge. And this is why you are in the school that you are. It is training you on how to deal with, different kinds of stages of your work. But what you need to do for yourself is you need to learn to train your mind, not to panic, and the biggest thing and this will absolutely, be the rock on which your future career will lie, which is do not play the blame game. Leadership comes from the fact that, if anything goes wrong in my restaurant, sometimes terrible things like, people have allergies and there's been some misunderstanding, they are served dishes and, when people give the wrong information under pressure, the person who goes out to apologize is always me, because I should not be only in the position where I take the credit and the glory and all the fame and the fortune is just mine. When things go wrong, I always go out and I apologize saying, I'm sorry. And never ever do we have a public hanging of the person who may have made the mistake. It's not that I'm a saint. I feel like shouting at them, but I don't. I have learned to control my anger when I'm not a person, I'm quite low slung. The only person who I get angry with are my kids occasionally, but I'm quite calm. But of course, you get angry and you get frustrated sometimes when people have made mistakes. But that frustration and anger, the floor, the kitchen floor, the service area, this is not where you take it out. Your real leadership comes from being able to control your anger, to stand by this person who is feeling awful. Remember all of us when we've made mistakes, when we've broken your mother's precious family vase, that moment where you see it lying on the ground. Just put yourself in that position for that moment when this person has come back and made a huge mistake. Actually, This is the advantage that the lockdown has taught us. All of us are being forced to stay at home, forced to give up on all our aspirations. I know some of you, I was told before we started, had gone off to do your internship and training, and some of you just started in January, and it's like the race has started. You build up, you get ready, and then you start running, and then suddenly everyone says stop. And how have all of you dealt with it? This is the test of your personality, because you can't recreate what has happened to all of us. And in some ways, the pandemic has been a great leveler. I mean, of course, our great prime minister, he got it and almost died. And so it doesn't matter how powerful you are, how rich you are, whether you're poor. Of course, in this country, there is a problem. Disproportionate number of Asians are dying. Disproportionate number of Black and Asian doctors have died. And this is something that we'll have to look at later on. But if you look at the bigger picture, there are no barriers to this disease. And it has made us all flat. So today, I may have a different position from you. At the moment, you and I are exactly the same position. We're locked down, we're stuck at home. And everything that we were expecting and aspiring for and had ambitions for is broken. For us in our restaurant, we were fully booked till Valentine's next year. Every biryani supper club of mine, which is people fly down from New York for it, just for that biryani because they saw Netflix. Most of the supper clubs were all international. In fact, all of them were. People come down just to have that biryani supper club and fly back that afternoon. After, they come with their suitcases. Part of my restaurant looks like a railway station. I have all these bags of people who've arrived straight and come in just to eat biryani in the supper club and leave. No one is flying now. That story is over for me. I need to pick up the pieces and I need to find a way of bringing my team together, embracing them, making them feel that, yes, that part of our story is over. You have to accept reality that nothing will be normal when we go back. The new normal, like me, where 90% were flying in from the whole world after seeing Netflix, I will now have to service local clients who are all very thrilled. I keep getting messages from everyone saying, World War II thing that they all know now that no Yanks coming because the amount of trouble with tech, with printers who are behaving badly. I still do give one big thappar to everything. My kids think I'm mad. If that doesn't work, I switch it off and I switch it on. And this is our moment when this is happening to all of us. We have been switched off unexpectedly. And it is really our challenge of how we behave. You can come back to the disrupted, able to do his exam, and he worked diligently for it. Very. My older son, who's in college, is thrilled beyond belief because he hadn't studied. So for him, the cancellation of the exams is he basically dodged a bullet. He's thrilled. So we all react in different ways, But for all of you who chose this career, some of you after having studied different things, done different, professions, you all have decided to embrace hospitality and have come in here. This will be catastrophe for you to have this stop. But it's also a chance for you to actually reboot yourself. This is your chance to think, when I come back, what have I learned from this entire experience? When I was stuck, go back and think, what kind of a person you want to be when you go back. Because actually, all of us will have changed. I personally it is also coincided with Ramzan, and I have realized that actually Ramzan is not just for me about not eating and drinking from sunrise to sunset. It is a test of my discipline. When no one is watching, do I eat, do I drink? And this is the same thing that's happening to all of us, that bahar nikal jate, koi nahi dekh raha. Of course, police pakadne se to they'll maro you. I've seen all the videos of Indian police catching people and beating them. But this whole thing of self-control, uh, disciplining yourself, and this is a lesson I have learned myself, because I I am trying now. And now I started boxing, because I'm trying to get healthier. I'm 50, and I've realized now how precious health is. And so this is my life lesson I've learned from having now got stuck. Everything in my restaurant stopped. It is devastating, because I don't know, and very clearly the government is constantly saying, I know in India a date has been given of when restaurants and hotels will be opened again, and you will slowly go back to your school and college, and learning will start again. But for us, we've been repeatedly told that you will open last. So first schools, other shops, whatever, and when you open, you can only open at half capacity. And I cannot tell you, for us, the kind of rent that I pay, I'm in the heart of Soho. It's a very, very valuable property. The rent is eye-watering. If I have to run my restaurant at half capacity, I cannot even pay my staff with the amount of money I make. Forget the rent. So this again is a huge challenge. And some, of course, have started doing takeaway. And for me, I cannot do takeaway, and I won't do takeaway. And I took this very difficult decision. My rent has not been written off. I've tried to tell my landlord, but my landlord said no. I decided not to risk the lives of my team coming on to the tube, on the underground. They're in their 50s and 60s. I decided I'm not going to risk their lives and ask them to come in to do takeaway. So I put my personal money. I have some savings. I was saving for something else. I've put my personal money back into my business, because for me, the life of my team and their health, that is my biggest asset. And that is what you have to be. You have to learn to be a team player, a team member, so that when decisions like this are made, my team came before my personal fortune. My team came before my lease. My team came before everyone, because they had showed me the loyalty and the commitment when I worked with them. Now is my time to show leadership and stand by them. So everyone has been told they will be paid. No one has been sacked. They will all be paid, because also I have a kind of other complication, which is that most of my team, the women are supporting husbands, children, grandparents, in-laws in India and in Nepal. So how can they will starve if they don't have income. They're immigrants. This is a story of an immigrant. I cannot forget my own story, and having left home. If I had, how can I leave these people, Sahara, with no hope? So because they stood by me, and I just want to share a little story before I'm cut off. I don't know how many minutes I've already spoken for, but it was a very busy time, but I had told everybody that we are blocking the tables, and we're not going to take people too many tables. So I blocked it on the system. So we had less than half the restaurant that evening. It was Diwali, and I told my entire staff that y'all can leave. Whoever needs to leave can leave. We'll manage. The rest of us will manage. But the restaurant got very full and got more and more packed. And as the evening went by, it became obvious. And I was watching my team one by one putting their mobile phones outside the kitchen, because their family must have been calling them, when are you coming back? I couldn't look at them in the eye. I knew what was happening, that they chose to stay and serve rather than go home. And there was no communication. They just gave that thing. And at the end of the night, Uma, who is a grandmother, she's got a 20-year-old granddaughter, So I went to Uma and I said, Uma, I know that you are a grandmother, and I can't even imagine the number of texts and calls you must have got tonight, because no one at home that till the service ended. And she told me that, Bibi, this place is for me a mandir. You are for us the Devi. Where will I go and worship if I do not show loyalty to my own team? And I wept, because that is what you dream of, that you build a team where they put the team. No one wanted to break away from the team. No one even communicated, because I was in the kitchen that day, because I thought I was going to be doing most of the work, because I was expecting all of them to leave. And when no one left and no one talked, but they must have communicated just by their eyes looking at each other, that no one took that step to the door and said, I'm leaving. The team stayed together. And this is what, these are moments that, you realize that how important it is that, when you're on your back foot, when things go wrong, you alone are nothing, however good you are. Because, every plate that goes out, and you will know this because of different levels that you have started, working in hospitality or are aware of it, at least 9 people touch that plate. From the person who washed the plate, to the person who does the garnish, takes it to the service, picks it up, brings it back to the kitchen, and back to the person who washes that plate. How are you as a head chef or the front of the, who everyone associates as being the person whose, restaurant it is? How are you the star when 9 people, at least 9 people, have assisted you to get that food out and to make sure that that was a pleasant experience for that person who was eating, who may only see, and in my case, I serve a lot of people in my restaurant. In fact, I serve everybody. I take orders, I clear plates, because for me, even though they pay a bill at the end of it, my ethos is that this is as if they have come to my house. This is my Indian tradition. I will look after them like my, like an incarnation of God. They've come to me and I will serve them with the greatest of respect. And for that, I need to be able to serve on their table, make eye contact, give them their food, and talk to everybody and thank them for having come. But if they only thought this was about me, this is why when, Netflix, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone has seen all the other episodes, please do see them. But most of them, 35 chefs that they have seen around the world who are like superstars, the story is really about them. Maybe they show their partner or their. Me, I told Netflix when they came to me, I will only do this if you show my team. I want not just that the women should be shown and that they should be celebrated. I want them to be named. And there was silence, because this was a call between LA, New York, and some people were in Australia at that time, and 2 people were in some jungle somewhere in Africa. So this was like, all of us trying to talk this team that was going to work on my episode. And there was silence, and I thought I'd lost the connection. And then eventually one person said, you're the first chef who has ever asked for us to show the team. And it was a shock to me. Then I realized that, this happens too much in our business. Please don't do this when you become powerful. When you become in my position, when you surpass me, when you become greater and bigger than I can ever be, and you become someone, people look up to, and you become powerful, and that the world looks up to you, please bring on board. Celebrate your team, because that is really, you're not taking away from your, your right to be, celebrated. The stage is big enough for all of us. The stage is not where you hit the spotlight on one person only. It is also the honest thing and the right thing to do, is to build teams who feel equal to you, empowered. Because, it is not, if I had a hierarchy in my kitchen, and I don't, but I know that in hotels and restaurants you do. in restaurant kitchens you do, because this is a crazy, stupid, military style, different rankings. I hate it. But I know that this is how kitchens work. This is fine. For us, it doesn't work because trying to uh, organize a group of women. Anyone who has seen aunties cooking together can understand what my problem is. You can't tell them anything. They will do what they want to do. So this is the same thing. Every day people do different things. And there's like nothing I can say that, person who makes a puchka in the chart, suddenly I'm seeing she's making paratha. Uska mood tha. There's nothing I can do. So ours is a very kind of, loose thing, but it doesn't work everywhere. You do need to have assigned roles and everything, which is all fine. But never ever you should think that you are in any way superior, that there is ranking. This hierarchy may be necessary for discipline in a kitchen, but do not ever imagine this is your position in that kitchen. Anyone, the day our kitchen porter, she got unwell and couldn't come, and last minute she told us, I'm not coming. The way the pots were piling up in the back of the kitchen, I was washing the pots, and it was very humbling for me. I realized that, we can do everything. She wasn't there to wash the pots. We were dying. Eventually, she sent her mother to come and do it, and her mother worked harder than her. She sent her mother to come and, wash up everything. And how grateful. We all cheered and clapped when this, 70-year-old woman turned up saying, I've come to wash the pots. We were like, by which time I had died. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to throw away these pots and buy new ones. I just was so tired of washing pots. But, you need to do this. You need to have to go through this to understand. You need to go. I mean, this is from Atticus to Kill a Mockingbird. If anyone has read that book, you remember this thing where Atticus says you need to climb into the skin of someone else and walk in that skin. You need to put yourself in that other person's position, so that when that person has made a mistake or gone wrong, try and understand why that happened. And maybe the fault is yours. Maybe you didn't communicate well enough. So it's really important to be able to have a team that respects you, not because you own it, not because you're this big superstar and you're on television and the world is writing about you, and important people come and want to talk to you, and you have big stars coming to the restaurant. It is very exciting, and I must say, when big people, important people come to the restaurant. When Danny DeVito came to my restaurant, oh my God, I was so excited. He's the height of a fridge. And I was like, oh my God, I just couldn't believe I had Danny DeVito. And he ate, I think six plates of puchkas, the pani puri. I was so worried because I thought this is like, he's not going to eat the rest of the food. He did eat the rest of the food as well. He just loved the puchkas, pani puri, never eaten in his life. So, you have all these moments, but, I don't get carried away because I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm one. And, as there is which is not true really politically, but, the British Prime Minister is always called first among equals. In reality, it's not like that. But for me, I see myself as first among equals. Absolutely. I don't know how much time I have left. Can I just check?
Chef, you're actually good on time. We're 30 minutes to the session, so about another 10 minutes.
Okay, so I have another 15 minutes.
10 odd minutes.
Okay, another 10 minutes. I just wanted to talk about another thing. Okay, so if I can just go back, because I just want to check that I just wanted to then talk about a very kind of, it's a personal thing, my personal journey, because I didn't want to talk about my personal journey till I talked about the importance of teams. Is that I began in this house, in fact, on this dining table, with supper clubs in my own house. I kind of slightly lied to my husband. I didn't lie, I didn't tell him, he didn't know. It's okay. So I did it when he was away. So I did the supper clubs over here. I began over here, and the team that you see in Netflix, for those who watched it, the team you will see today, same team. In 2012, when I began the supper clubs, they came to help me. Initially, they didn't know anything, and most of them are vegetarians who work with me. So they were all helping me and had never cooked meat, but they were all assisting me. 90% of our food is prep. It's about the way you bhuno masala, the garam masala you make fresh. It's how thin you cut the piyaz. It's the caramelizing of the onions. All of that requires technique. This is what these women had. They may never have made Shahi Korma, never had made biryani or Nargisi kebab, but they had cooked. They had cooked and they had the skills. They had the patience. You know, and in my restaurant, I was mentioning this earlier that these women the average age of the woman cooking in my kitchen, actually cooking, is 50 years old. I'm also 50. And, I didn't make them stand and, work on a work surface. I got little plastic stools. They sit down on this stool and they sit with a tray on their lap and they cut. And I can tell you one thing. I have seen these young boys from chef school with their beautiful knife skills. My women can take them on anytime. The speed at which they peel and they cut. And we sing a lot, and you'll find, and people are always surprised because you'll hear them singing. And it's like Antakshari, there's constantly singing old Hindi songs, mostly Kishore Kumar, Talat Mahmood as well. Then there's always an argument about someone has sang the wrong words, just like you have in Antakshari. But this rhythm, I think someone is always singing. And in this rhythm and the music of our, ammis and nanis and dadis, we feel the presence of our mother there, of all of us. And this also unites us. This is a team, but behind us is that team that never got celebrated. The women who, many of them are in their graves. We took their food for granted. And I tell this to everybody, my entire, team, and I am the face. You see my face, but I am the face of every Asian woman who never got celebrated. In every Indian home you go to, be it Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, anywhere, in South Asia, you will invariably find an Indian woman cooking with her daughter there, standing there, or daughter-in-law. But unfortunately, in every Indian restaurant you go to around the world, you'll find it's mainly men. And I don't have a problem if there are men cooking, but I want to know, why are there no spaces for us? And this is why I, wanted to open a restaurant to celebrate, to honor even those who are dead, but I wanted to honor them by having a home style, kitchen where we cooked like, our mothers, where we served like we do in our families. And it worked. And my greatest joy would be to see this being replicated around the world. I want to see others, I want to see other women setting up restaurants, becoming, famous, getting a Michelin star, getting all the accolades, because I think that it's, our time has come. And I know that from earlier discussion that there are many women in here in this group. And I think that, the times are changing, and I think that, an institute like this that has opened its doors, is encouraging, is positive, because if every year on year, if so many women are coming to this place, means that there is no bias. Because where there is bias, if someone asks me, shall I go here, shall I go there, I'll tell them where I know that I am welcome. So I'm delighted that, there is an institute like this where, women are treated equally to everybody else. Men and women are the same. It's very important. And yes, I know that, there aren't any men in my team, but I have to work with men all the time. And, I treat them fairly. I'm very good with men. I don't discriminate against them. So, it's not that it only works in one way. Women can also gang up against boys. This happens a lot. So, bicharas, sometimes we have one guy who comes to wash pots. He's called, poor thing, is from Ghana, he's called Daku. Whole time these women are singing to him, Daku, Daku. But he loves them, they love him, and, there's a kind of great relationship. But, it does happen. You have to fight your own inner instincts to gang up. You are a team first, and if you take away anything from this, please take away this Diwali story, because this really shows you that, it is not about who you are, what your faith is, what your caste is. in the end of it, when you put on that white coat and you're in the kitchen, you are one team. It is not that you put everything outside. You leave it outside. Your prejudices, your biases, your hatred, your whatever. And this is really important because, people pick up things. Trafalgar Square is like an open square in the middle of London. There are people sleeping rough there who are Eastern European, who were waiters and waitresses. The restaurants just sacked them when this pandemic happened. Shame on those people who never saw them as part of their team. And they let them go because they thought they're expendable. Uh, and you don't do this. If you are in a position of strength, you are absolutely in a position to help the weak. And the weak will only stay weak if you do not help them to have that strength from within. You don't abandon them because they're struggling. You try your best to improve their skills, their communication. Do not ridicule them, do not set them aside, do not other them, put them away as someone who's low achieving. This is really a test. If they are not achieving in your team, because you have not been able to of the team together and make them feel they're a team. This has to come from within. And if you are in positions of power, this is your great opportunity in them. And I'll tell you one thing, of everything that has happened in my life, I have watched these women. Some of them have had domestic issues before, whatever. They, not everybody, and some of them were not very well off and struggled. And I saw them grow in confidence, in strength, that they became powerful enough that on my day when I was panicking that I was going to be left alone on Diwali, that no one left me, that they were so strong. And in their eyes was pride that they had actually helped me. And this is the great strength of being able to build a team, that they then become your backbone. And this can only happen if you treat them, each person, irrespective of their skills. Everybody has people in the team, those that are very high achieving, those that are very ambitious, those that are very aggressive, those that are very submissive, those who are constantly complaining, those who are constantly, unhappy. You'll have that. Nobody has a perfect team. Your ability to be able to deal with all these different characters and make them set aside these traits that they have, which you cannot get rid of, but to be able to build a team despite those characteristics that they each have. This is when it is really a very, very, it's a very challenging thing, but this is when So I can now say I'm successful. My success was not the fact that I was on TV and I got a cookbook which everyone likes. No, I say I'm successful because I built a formidable team from nothing. We were nothing. We were just home cooks and housewives and never ever worked in a professional kitchen. We didn't have the opportunity to go through the kind of training that you will have. You're very lucky. You have people who will mentor you, who are teaching you things, who are giving you skills. Please use it. Use this education that you have now and the opportunity to understand, the techniques of hospitality, which none of us did. We managed somehow. We made it. We made it somehow or the other. But you are actually being given the tools to make it. And then you have no justification to be able to dismiss people, to ridicule people, and to shout at them, because that is not what you are being trained to be. You're being trained to be a leader in hospitality. And for that, you need to learn to control your temper. You need to also be humble. It's quite important because, I think that, arrogance is something that I see a lot in hospitality. And even now, where very prominent, I better not name them because I have already in the past and been asked not to name them. very prominent, people with considerable personal fortune sacked their entire, chefs on the day the lockdown was announced without putting their money in. And I'm not being I'm not doing this because I put my money back into the business, because these are, they're my mother's age. How can I put them on the street? But, they let the entire staff go, and they are they are arrogant enough to think they will come back, everything come back with a bang when it is all, and they will have a queue of people waiting to work for them. They might well have a queue of people because people think they want to work with famous chefs. But it saddens me a lot that the instinct of hospitality in the UK was not for the workers. Everybody panicked and got rid of people and has not been supportive to their own teams. And those that have, I'm absolutely sure people will come back to those places because those people didn't let their teams down. They stood by their staff. And at least personally for me, I will only go to those restaurants that I know were honorable to their own teams. And I think that, people who have lost so much, and I think that everyone is going to be short of money when they come back. You need to be able to be that one restaurant, that one hotel, that one place that they will go to thinking that is a decent person. They are good people. And in the past, maybe this was not something that people thought was an important value to have to your business. But I'll tell you, after the pandemic, when all of us have been humbled and have lost so much, there will be a change in attitude. People will want to behave with dignity. Didn't just, you know, the way that you saw, migrant workers just working back. Same thing is happening here. You don't see it visually so much, but there people have been left with no job. They can't pay for their rent. They're sleeping rough on the streets of London, and they're in hospitality. And when this is all over, they will go back and be serving on your table. But in their heart, they will never feel that same respect because they were abandoned by the places they worked. So, I know that it's not possible for everyone to have, to put in their personal resources. Sometimes even solidarity, which is, something that I'm a huge believer in. You show solidarity to your team. It doesn't always have to be about money. It is this whole gesture like, Uma, Kalpana, Asha, Shanta, not leaving that night, not leaving me, feeling that this was for them, in some ways, prayer. In some ways, they were fulfilling an obligation of service. That is what you need to build. You need to build a team where they feel that they will not turn their back to you. They don't walk out on you. But that means also you don't walk out on your team. It works both ways. So these very big and prominent chefs who have left their people and protected their personal fortunes, I'm I wait to see how they will come back. They may come back and be successful, but they've lost the shine. You see, these gods have, feet of clay, and they have exposed their feet of clay. That they're not these people who you worship at as, the hospitality stars. They are very, very ordinary people who showed no compassion, and you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person also for your own good. In all the crisis I'm having, with the bills that are due, the fact that my landlord will not, cancel my rent, and I may not be allowed to open to September. That is 6 months. I mean, 6 months of rent in Soho is, I don't even want to talk about it. But I don't fear it because I know I'll come back and people will stand by me. Already people write to me saying, when can we come, and how can, what date can we come back? And it's a very reassuring. And I get a lot of very kind messages from people saying, we think about you, and we want you to know that we will come back in very big numbers. We will come back and support you. And this is, when you know that it was worth it, that the team effort and the team spirit is going to hold through the pandemic, and we will come back stronger. We will come back better, having had a very difficult time. My normal complaints are, that I wish I was at home. I'll tell you one thing. I have two teenage boys. I'd much rather serve and feed 200 people than my two boys. They have driven me mad. Although it's fun to be at home, but everything I'm making is like, what else is there? I mean, what is this? I told them this is not a hotel, this is not a restaurant, this is a house. You can't just ask me what else is there after I've cooked so much. But children are like this. But it's been fun, being a full-time mother again. But a challenge, it's a real challenge. And so now, I will not worry that, oh, I wish I was at home cooking for my kids. No, I've done it. I've done it, and I realized one thing that is so hard. And to all the mothers, my God, and everybody who's at home now cooking, good luck to all of you, because it is actually incredibly difficult and quite thankless. I'm so tired of washing pots and pans, and my aim every morning when I get up, I think, what can I cook which will mean minimum washing up? I plan my food based on how few bartans I can use to cook, because I've also gone mad washing bartans. So, it's actually good for me. It's been a good lesson for me to understand that, you can be who you are, but this is the great leveler, the pandemic. It has put all of us in our places. So I don't know whether you want to now open to question and answers now.
Yeah, Chef. Well, thank you very much. First of all, it has been nothing short of listening to you. I've been glued, and I think all of us are extremely grateful to your words of wisdom. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, can you hear me, Chef?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, lovely, good. All right. Yes, we will open the floor to questions. And students, if I could ask you to please type out your questions in the chat box, and I'll be happy to moderate them for you with Chef Asma. Chef, I do have 1 or 2 questions of my own. May I?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, one of the biggest things that I learned, or rather understood from your conversation, and I think that was one of the major pillars of the success of Darjeeling Express, is that you mentioned that the biggest asset is your team, and I couldn't agree more. I think all of us must value that. As future entrepreneurs, could you perhaps just point out 2, maybe 3 tips or 3 very important essential skills that one must have to build such a great team such as yours?
Yeah, the first thing is how you pay people. I think that the feeling that you pay people different things is always leads to resentment. I think that you should be transparent about, what is the contract? These are the hours you get. I think that your team then believes you, because they know that you are not, you're not taking advantage of them, that everybody is being paid equally. Very important in this culture. I don't know what the situation is like in India, but women get paid less than men in kitchens for the same work. And that is appalling, absolutely appalling. And they get promoted less, they have less opportunities. They are often not given the chance to move ahead as quickly as men, because there is this thing that, they are not seen as equal in lots of ways. And payment is very important. So one way to build a team is to make sure that your team feels that everyone is equally valued. One way is to pay everybody equally and tell people that that is how the situation is. And the second thing is to have very regular, we have 2 meetings a day, to have meetings and to take on board what people are saying. I think that it's really important that you should not be seen as a decision maker only, that people are allowed to express their views, that their views are respected. You don't have to do what everyone says, but your views are respected, that they feel that the door is always open, that they can come to you and say that, ye itna acha se nahi hua, I thought of this. When they come in with their ideas, be open to their ideas, listen to them. Even if you do not implement them, do not dismiss it as something that is not worthy. These are all the things that go into making a team member feel that you value them. So these are the two important facts.
Excellent. Thank you, Chef. Chef, we have a question here from one of our students. Chef, how do you start your daily routine? So, how do you start your routine at your restaurant in London? And I mean, all that goes into a full 18, maybe 20. I don't know how many hours a day you are busy. I'm sure there are a lot, but.
So the thing is that we open for lunch at 12 o'clock, and we very, interestingly, considering the rent and the fact that most restaurants are 24, they open for the whole day. In the part of Soho where I am based, we close at 3. So we take last orders at 2:30. So from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we are technically closed. We close the doors, and all the women call their homes. They have these long Skype calls with their kids in India. They rest. Some of them sleep. Some of them then sit and eat all kinds of crazy things, mostly chaat and chai and things like that. So we do that. So I go in quite early. I'm not always first in, but I go in around 9 o'clock. So I don't start that early. We don't start that early because I insist that everybody drops their kids to school. So we have a lot of women who are mothers. And, I also just want to emotionally see that my child through the school gate. So if I want to do it, why will I ask them to come early? So it does mean that because my children are now, grown up, I don't have this issue. So I go first in. So there are 3 of us who have no children. We come first in. And those with children who are very small children, they come last. So it's very staggered. We don't all start at the same time. And my job is always to make chai for everybody. I start the masala chai, and then as everybody comes in, they build. They're always hoping that I start cutting the onions, but I am not that stupid. So I don't do that, but I do the chai, and I do the less painful bits. And then once everybody comes in, my kitchen is too small, I have to get out. And then I do a lot of admin with my front of house and my GM, who normally turn up by 11. And by 12, we are packed. And then from 3 to 6, at 3 o'clock, the kitchen team eats together. They like to eat with their hands, and they sit on these little stools and they eat inside the kitchen. I eat with the entire front of house outside. And then I eat with the team. And this is quite a nice way, because if anything has gone wrong, and there's always some fight between two people, this is invariably. It's a great chance, because over food, there's your mouth is full, you can't fight too much. This is an opportunity. So I always insist I eat with them, and I know when something has gone wrong. So I will sit between the two people, and we will do it without making it too obvious. It doesn't look like, a court situation where two people are on two sides. But we do always try, and so that, over the break, all the angst of lunch is over. Because you don't want to carry on any problem that happened at lunchtime, carrying on till dinner. So that is basically my routine. And I do tend to leave by 10 o'clock. I don't stay till the end of service because I want to see my children awake. And so I leave at 10. But if I am in England, I'm always in my restaurant, and I will serve every table.
Wonderful. That's very inspiring, I must say. We have another question here from our student Sushant, who says, from Supper Club to Darjeeling Express, how did you manage the economies? Well, I guess it's about scaling up, and how did you?
Yeah. So the thing is that, I did the Supper Club in my house because I had no money. Also had zero confidence that anyone would pay to eat my food. And I thought that initially the Supper Clubs I did were all for charity. So I thought that even if the khana is very bad, they will say, oh yeah, we are supporting this charity. So initially I never did it as a business. I absolutely did it as a charity because I was so insecure that I was good enough that people would pay money to eat my food. And also I was terrified that they come and say, oh, why am I in a house, and how strange and how odd, and this is not good service. I was very scared of all of those things. But then, I became really popular, and people were like, fighting to come into my Supper Club. I again still had no income and no kind of savings enough to have actually done anything. So I went to the pub where the weekly rent was very low because they kind of didn't really expect you to be successful. They just wanted some food for the people who are drinking at the bar. And no one ever has hired an Indian person to do it because no one's going to eat rice and korma, when they've come to have drinks. But he just gave me a chance. I suppose he thought I was very earnest and enthusiastic and probably took some pity on me. I don't know. But Pascal gave me the opportunity and I worked there. And it was there that the landlord of the place that I am right now came and ate. And I'm lucky. I moved from the house to a pub. The pub exposed me to my landlord, but also to my future clientele. Because once people started writing about me, I became very popular at minimum cost, literally nothing. I was in a space where I was literally marketing for my future restaurant. And then, when he did offer me the restaurant space, I had a lot of trouble raising money, I have to admit. I got very bad investors who were not very nice to me. The problem is that people take kindness and politeness and what we call tehzeeb and manners as weakness. Huge mistake. Never underestimate an Indian woman because inside us is a core of steel. And the thing is that, we are the type who will bend, but we will not break. And this is a huge thing that, the investors came in like sharks, thinking that they could push me around. I thought, no. Eventually, I got the money from the bank, but that was also because I met someone through the pub in another supper club. She worked for the bank, and she managed to get all the women in the bank together to fight with the men in the bank who said, are you mad? We don't want to give the money to her. She doesn't even have a credit card. So find your allies and take every opportunity. I went to the pub knowing I would be humiliated. I remember the time when people would pass me by in the pub, who were drinking. I said, would you like to try some food? We try some samosa. And this guy would always tell me, no curry, love. Don't want your curry, love. And no curry, love stood for 2 hours for a table. Once the story came out about me, I didn't bill him. He knew why. Because I remember him humiliating me by saying, no curry, love. So the whole point is that, go through the really bad times, go through the fire repeatedly. This is how you can scale up because you never know which door will open for you. If I had sat and analyzed that, I come from a very good family, I'm Muslim and I don't drink, will I want to go this and I want to do that? Somehow you need to think that, let me take every chance. Let me do something that no one else has done before. You never know what will happen. I did something outrageous. I went to a pub and I opened a kitchen there and I had a little corner where I served food and nobody ate my food for 10 days. But still I tried. I cried every night. I cried when I failed. But I tried. And then someone wrote this great review. Fame Ashler changed my life. There was a queue of people. And then I was the hottest thing in London. But I could only have been there where I went into a situation which was like outrageous. I used to tell people I'm in a pub. They said, are you mad? Who's going to eat, your biryani in a pub? I said, I don't know. Someone will. And they did. So the whole point is you scale up. You can't plan, everything. But never, ever, if a door is slightly open, go through it. That's my advice to everybody. Because you can't plan the perfect scaling up. But you can go into every door and see and fail. And then maybe you can succeed. Don't think you will fall. You may fly. And for that, you need to be able to push through every door and go in. So yeah, that's the way to scale up.
Well, that's some inspiring advice. I think we're all going to take note and live by that, certainly. We have a question here from Jatinder who asks, Chef, a few tips on how you handle your women team. So,
yeah, it's. I think any team is difficult. An all-female team of women who are older, who are very opinionated, comes with its challenges. And, I think that the whole point is that, if people think you are fair at the end of it, even if they don't like the decision you have made, where it could be that you seem to have favored one person or the other, it is actually possible to bring everything down to an even keel. And So my aim always is when there has been unpleasantness and there has been fights or allegations of someone having messed up and or made a mistake or whatever, I won't let anybody go. I tell them till you all may have made up. Everyone is so desperate to go, they make up. I said no one can go angry. Like you don't tell your child you can't go to sleep, angry with me. You can't fight. So I won't let anybody leave the restaurant unless they have actually made peace. So it's not easy. There are days when it is very tough, and there are days when I find it quite overwhelming. But almost all the time, we are able to sort things out because actually there is a lot of love and respect and izzat between us. And all of that comes from having built up this team that we forgive, we forget, we move on, we applaud. Yes, we also shout and we get angry. But everybody knows that you cannot hang your coat up and turn your back at the team. That is so, ingrained in everybody. So at the end, when they know that, the option of storming out is not there because you will not do that, then everything gets settled down.
Good. All's well that ends well, isn't it? Chefs, and we have a question. Which is your favorite dish that you've served in your restaurant? If you have a favorite dish, that is.
At the moment, my favorite dish is a Bengali dish in the restaurant, which is luchi and kosha mangsho. I have managed to find and source an excellent, supplier of goat, which is what people in India call mutton. In this country, all you get is sheep and lamb, which is like, it smells and it's so fatty. So I have like proper kosha mangsho, and so kosha mangsho luchi right now is my favorite. And in the supper clubs, I know it's very predictable. I love biryani. I can eat biryani all the time. I blame my mother and my upbringing and all the 1,000 weddings that I went to as a child. For me, even wearing the worst clothes and wearing my mother's jewelry and hating it and everything poking, I went for biryani. And even now, when I go back home, I go to weddings where I'm not invited. I go with someone who's been invited just to eat the biryani. So I gate crash weddings, when I go back, and I tell my uncle, please keep all the shadiga cards. I'm coming back for 5 days, all the weddings I want to go to. So my mother's mad. She said, like, how can you go to a wedding of a person you don't know? Are biryani milne wala hai? You go for biryani. So yeah, biryani is my favorite.
Good, excellent. The dish that you mentioned, could you just describe that Bengali dish? Exactly what is it?
Yeah, so kosha mangsho is a very traditional dish that is made in Bengal, invariably at the end of Kali Puja. This is when, there's a big, the community building, they come and cook together. Kosha comes from this kosh, kosh, kosh noise that you make, as your spoon hits the bottom of the pan. And it is close to a bhuna gosht. And basically you dry out the meat till all the spices are clinging around the meat. So it is not a dish with gravy. It is a very simple dish. It's like a bhuna mutton, or for those who do know khade masale ka gosht.
Yes.
Which is it's a dryish, but very succulent. The meat has been cooked down for a long time. It literally falls off the bone. So when I say dry, I know that all of you all will mean it, but Gora people don't obviously get it. Sometimes they're like, this is dry. I said, no, just eat the meat, eat the meat. The meat is soft completely, but the gravy has been cooked down. So it is this kind of mangsho is meat, kosha is this. I think it's to do with the kashkash noise, but it is basically bhuna, like bhuna gosht.
Excellent. Wonderful. So then we have, Chef, what are the challenges that you faced opening an Indian restaurant abroad? Now, I think that's a very big question and a very important one for that, because a lot of us in the Institute one day hoped and prayed that we can run a restaurant or an eatery of our own. But I'm sure opening one alone is difficult. And on top of that, you opened one in England. So what were the challenges, if there were any?
The thing is that, I am very hesitant to criticize the curry houses that, opened in the 60s and 70s in this country, mainly by Seletis from Bangladesh, who opened Indian restaurants, who have a terrible reputation. I mean, now they cook food which is, chicken tikka masala, and the kormas are like sharbat because they're so sweet. Diabolical kind of adaptations of Indian food. But I actually know I stand on their shoulders because what they did is we have the first advantage. We were the first exotic taste in this country. They introduced spice. And England in this country in the 60s and 70s, full of skinheads, very right wing, people. There were lots of racist attacks. People would go into restaurants and not pay. No one could actually rent a place. They often had glass being thrown through their windows. No bank would lend them money, and they had to work with their own family. So they went through this trial by fire. But what they did is they introduced a nation to the idea of what they think was Indian food, but spice. So actually, for us, for me to come in and serve kosha mangsho and luchi, which nobody, it's such a regional dish. I also serve, I serve Bhopali chicken. I serve chicken chop, which is a Calcutta korma Mughlai dish. And we do prawns from Tangra, Tangra prawns, which is, Indo-Chinese. We do puchkas, and even if this is not what they ate in a curry house, they recognize the flavors. Because however wrong they were and what they did, they have built a foundation on which I am standing. And I always feel bad that people criticize them. A lot of Indian chefs do criticize them. You shouldn't criticize them because they did the best they could. They were trying to make a living, but they did. So all the Chinese and the Japanese and the ceviches and all the steakhouses and everything that have come, Indian food in this country, there is an emotional link because someone who's our age or younger, their first memory of something exotic will be Indian. Will not be sushi. Will not be steak and American burger. They will remember a curry and rice. And that is the advantage. There are thousands of them. Was difficult, but then I'm not like every other Indian restaurant. I'm different. It's not because we only have women cooking. Yeah, I think it's also because we have women cooking. But also the food is very regional. I only have 5 things on my menu. I don't have 1,000 options. And people come and tell me, well, can we have naan bread? I hate people who call it naan bread. It's either naan or it's bread. You can't call it both. I say, no. In no Indian house, you make naan. Your house will bloody catch fire if you have a tandoor in your house. It's, we make paratha, chapati, we do, I make luchis, I have rogni roti, which is a very UP village bread. We don't do naan. So, but people are like, okay, there's no naan, no. Is there kali dal? No. They say, oh, why is this dal yellow? Okay, it's yellow. This is the dal that almost all of us eat. Yeah, we don't do dal makhani. We're not, but people have accepted. So yeah, it's in the beginning you had all this rubbish that, why is this dal come out yellow? As if it's like, every dal should be black. What is this paratha and what is this rogni roti? Where's my naan? There's no naan. We don't know how to, none of us know how to use a tandoor. So yeah, so it was difficult, but if you don't try, you'll not win.
Wow, that's very, very exciting and interesting at the same time. I think to sum it up, what you're saying is the biggest challenge was to re-educate people about how vast Indian cuisine is. Is that right?
Yeah.
Just
yeah, because the thing is that
Indian food is much beyond this.
Our cuisine is incredibly deep. It is so, it has, the roots go back centuries. Every dish has a story. Every dish, starting from its name, like chicken puri kebab, it is a Farsi word for stuffed in the stomach because there's a filling inside the middle of the kebab. All of those have names. They have stories. They have magic. So the thing is that I think people now do know. And also people travel, So 20 years ago, people would go to India and just go to few places. But now, it's cheaper to go to India. Hospitality has reached the point where you can go to very remote places in India, stay well, eat well. So I think India has also upped the game a lot. So you get all of that, There's an exposure to, I meet people who come and tell me, I went to the Golden Temple. 15 years ago, nobody did. And they come and tell me, oh, we had this, kulcha in the old Golden Temple. And my heart bursts with pride that, they went to India, they went to the Golden Temple, because people are adventurous, people are traveling, it's cheaper to travel. So, it's all of that. So this all helps us, So never fear, go and do your regional things and don't try and be what is trendy. Be who you are, because at the end of it, that is the only thing that will keep you standing. The food that you can stand and communicate the passion, not in your words, but in your eyes and in the touch of the way you cook it. That is when you will succeed, not trying to be someone else.
I agree. I couldn't agree more with you, Chef. Chef, we have two more questions and then we'll conclude it there. We have a question from one student who says, given the formative stage of your flavor palette, which is Aligarh, if that's correct, how was your shift to English food?
I'm not going to say bad things about English food. It was, and for me, it was a shock because my first exposure to English food, all of you all, India today, I left India 30 years ago. This is before, anything. So, I didn't have any idea of English food. I was served food as a guest of honor at my college at Cambridge where my husband was teaching. And I thought they had put this cabbage to boil 2 days ago and forgotten it. Because, oh my God, for me, cabbage is like, what is this? It was, and also 30 years ago, the food was terrible. And in Cambridge, institutional cooking was nightmarish. Cambridge University, the food was the worst I've ever eaten. And the only thing I loved was mashed potato because it reminded me of aloo bharta. And apart from that, the food was really bad. So I have not really, I'm always shocked at my kids. My kids eat all kinds of, other things. I still love Indian food and I like Chinese food, but then that's it. I don't like English food.
So we'll respond to that with interesting. Your experience was interesting.
Yes.
All right. We have one last question. Chef, according to you, what Indian dish do you want to infuse with an English style? If at all you want to infuse, what would it be? What Indian dish would you infuse with an English style? Because what might just be a trend in India in very small parts is that we're trying to bring in a lot of Western methods of cooking into Indian food. So what choice of Indian food would you use if you were to combine it with English?
I've seen other people doing this. I personally would not, but I've watched people do, I think one of the things the British do well are pies. They do pies very well. So you do see, shepherd's pie with keema, Indian style keema, and I'm intrigued. I love the idea. And it obviously got cancelled, but I was going to do a filling of, some of you will know what is juri gosht. Juri gosht is shredded meat, which is then fried with lots of dried red chilies. And I was going to do that as stuffing for a pie with potatoes. And, so I think that, it lends ourselves, and, we have a big tradition of patties, especially in Calcutta, yes. This whole idea of patties. So Cornish patties, and our patties, these are the things that I think are very interesting, where they use this English idea of using a crust to do Indian style fillings, because, our flavor palette, we can't do bland boiled cabbage, so that's a torture. So I think that would work very well, but I don't do these kind of things, but I love seeing other people who do it, and I enjoy seeing their pictures, and I would like to taste it, but yeah, I don't do it myself.
Wonderful. No, I think what I personally consider as one of your many great strengths is that you've embraced Indian cuisine to the purest form, and we're so proud that you represent the entire country in a country where Indian food has seen so many reputations, from the best to the worst, and you have done actually wonders for Indian cuisine. Chef Asma, we salute you. We really, really applaud your efforts. And just one last question I want to ask before we end this lovely conversation is that, though you're doing so exceedingly well in England, any plans of doing anything in India anytime soon? I mean, if we take the equation of pandemic out of the picture, of course.
I will eventually come home, because for me, the call from my soil is too strong. I don't know how I'll do it and what I will do. But eventually, for me, I've lived here 30 years, longer than I have lived in India. But, my mitti is my mitti. And, I need to go back. So I don't know, at some point, when it will become too hard to be away, I will go back. And I would love to do something food related or support other people. More than that, I'm very interested in raising the standard of food and encouraging people to embrace our food, because I think that in this rush to be trendy, a lot of other cuisines you find in India being thing, but I don't think that enough of our food, of our own regions, of houses, food that is made in homes, is actually celebrated enough. So yeah, sometime I will come back. Yes.
Well, when you do, chef, you should know that you have a place at the institute waiting for you. We would love to host you and
Thank you.
have this interaction next time, more personal, more interactive, and more in the presence of all of our students. And
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank all of our students and faculty who've joined us today. Chef Asma, you've been very generous with your time, with your conversations, and the candidness that you've shared with us today. Thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome, and thank you everybody who has patiently listened to me. Thank you very much, and thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.